Good evening, councillors and also staff who join me here in the council chamber, and a warm welcome also to those streaming through the live stream transmission at the moment. We acknowledge the traditional owners of this land on which we are meeting and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to those from other communities who are here with us today, for they hold the memories, the tradition and the culture of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Item 3, apologies and requests for leave of absence. Do we have any of those? No? Item 4, declarations under the Acts, regulations, codes or local laws. CEO, are there any declarations? No, thank you, CEO. Declaration by councillors of any conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to disclose? I see all shakes of heads. We move on to item 6, the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. Councillors, item 6 is the confirmation of the minutes of the previous 2 meetings this time around. So firstly, the meeting of the 19th of October. Do I have a mover of the 19th of October's minutes to be confirmed? Thank you, Councillor Watson has moved, and thank you, Councillor Bennett, for a second. Does anybody wish to speak against that motion? The motion is carried unanimously. Secondly, the minutes of the meeting of the 23rd of October. Do I have a mover for the 23rd of October? Thank you, Councillor Simpfendorfer. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hall. You're fighting over that one with Councillor Bennett, but well done. Does anybody wish to speak against the motion there? No, and once again, the motion is carried unanimously. On to item 7, the delegates report, of which there are none this time around. And we head into item 8. And this is where we get down to business with the appointments of committees in 8.1. That commences on page 7. Before I ask for a motion, there is a tabled document which lists the suggested councillor nominees to the committees. CEO, would you please read through the tabled document that lists and outlines what we've got there?
Thank you, Mayor. The tabled document is as follows. Under our statutory committees, the Audit Committee, Councillor Quilty as the councillor representative. For the Municipal Association of Victoria, MAV, the representative is our Mayor and the substitute will be Councillor Mildren. Under the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee, Councillor Simpendorfer. And again, for the Municipal Fire Management Planning Committee, Councillor Simpendorfer. For the North East Local Government Waste Forum, we have Councillor Bennett and the substitute Councillor Hall. Moving on to advisory committees to council. The first of those is the Australia Day Committee, where our representative is nominated as Councillor Watson. And for the Place Names Advisory Committee, the nominated representative is Councillor Hall. For the representative committees, of which there are 2, firstly the Goulburn Broken Greenhouse Alliance, with the representative being Councillor Bennett. And finally, 2 cities and 1 community working group, which is represented by the Mayor, Councillor Watson and Councillor Simpendorfer. In terms of the external committees for officers, the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee, the chair of that committee is Leon Schultz as the Director Planning and Infrastructure, and members or officers joining that committee include our MIROs, our Municipal Emergency Resource Officers, and Municipal Recovery Manager, and the Emergency Management Coordinator, and the Municipal Fire Prevention Officer. The Country Fire Authority Municipal Fire Management Committee, again, that is our appointed staff member, the Municipal Fire Prevention Officer. And for the Regional Emergency Planning Committee, our Emergency Management Coordinator. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, CEO. And councillors, if the tabled document is supported, the proposed motion is that councillor and staff appointments to committees as tabled be approved. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Watson. And so Councillor Watson has moved that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall. Oh. Sorry, Libby, Councillor Hall just questioned if we had all of them right, and yes, Councillor Mildren was included there. Thank you, Councillor Hall. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Simpfendorfer. All right, I'd like to invite councillors to speak. I'll start with you, Councillor Watson.
I think it's very self-explanatory, Mr Mayor, so no comment required.
Thank you. Councillor Simpfendorfer.
No, Mr Mayor, I think it speaks for itself as well. Thank you.
Sorry, any other councillors like to speak? Thank you, Councillor Hall.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think the overall, the delegated committees have been generally well chosen. I think councillors sitting on those different committees really, each one of them really will take their expertise along with them. So I have, great expectations that they will do well for us, Wodonga City. There's only one thing that I see as a negative is that I think with Councillor Mildred, I believed he should have maybe had the opportunity to be delegated to the 2C 1C committee with Albury Council. I think it's, in my opinion, it's a loss for us and the committee for him not to have been given a position on this committee. Especially in light of his experience in planning and economic development. So it's in my view, he would have been a real asset to that committee, and it's a shame that he's been overlooked for that position. But overall, I think it's been a positive.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other councillors that wish to speak? Thank you, Councillor Bennett.
I've got a question without notice, sorry. Can someone refresh my memory on, I know when we did this 4 years ago, there was another committee, Councillor Mildred was on the Traffic Liaison Committee. What happened to that one in case community want to, have their say on that issue? Can I just get an update on what happened with that committee?
Certainly through me, Councillor Mildred.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Fundamentally, it's an operational committee. It doesn't deal with things that councillors get involved in, and the decision was made by the previous council to not place a council or representative to the committee. It has a number of staff. It's predominantly staff. It has a couple of external appointments with people that are associated with traffic management largely and policing, but it's all an operational committee and not really a council committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mildred. Any other councillors happy to speak? No? Councillor Watson?
Mr Mayor, you asked for me to close, are you? I'd just like to say and address it to Councillor Hall, is these appointments are for 12 months, and I think if someone has a burning desire to have a go at some other committee, I think we can look at that each year on an annual basis. So I take on board your comments, Libby, and I think we can look at that in the future.
Certainly would be the case, Councillor Watson. So I put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. We move on to item 8.2, the council meetings. There is a council's officer recommendation I note on page 11. Would somebody like to move a motion? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Councillor Bennett.
So this is just setting all our meetings out for the next year so we can plan around it and the community can plan around it. It's the third Monday of each month with two exceptions, one being because of Christmas, obviously, and then there's a gap between the May and the June meeting, and this is to allow for more consultation for the draft budget and council plan.
Councillor Quilty.
I have no further comments, thank you.
Any further comments from other councillors? Thank you. Therefore, I put the motion to follow the recommendation. All those in favour? Once again, carried unanimously. Thank you very much, councillors. Item 8.3 tonight is the tender for the spraying ceiling program 2018 to 2021. The report is on page 15. The officer recommendation is on page 16. Would somebody like to move a motion for me there? Thank you, Councillor Watson. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Madam, not Madam Mayor. It's been a long time. I do I do apologise, Mr Mayor. I think it's very self-explanatory. The contract is awarded if the motion goes through. Through our procurement, it is through a number of councils. So I think it'll be a good contract, and a local seal company has got it.
Thanks, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bennett.
Just a little fun fact here that the council's road network consists of 430 k's of sealed road.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. And for some, it may still not be enough. Any other councillors like to speak? No, I therefore put the motion. All those in favour? None opposed. Thank you very much. The motion once again is carried unanimously. On to item 8.4. Now, this is the tender for Gateway Island Murray River Walking Trail construction works. Now, CEO, before I move forward with this, would you like me to pick up on the correction that we need to make just on just a typo there?
Mr Mayor, thank you. There is a typographical error on the tender, and it's important that we correct that. So the recommendation, if approved, is 100% accurate. So the tender or the recommendation should read that the tender from Enviro Culture Services Party Limited for W2128-20 Gateway Island Murray River Walking Trail construction works for the contract sum of $552,166, excluding GST, be accepted. The contract period will be between the December the 1st, 2020 and June the 30th, 2021. So it's just an error in the numbering of the tender. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO, and obviously with that corrected, and the recommendation now corrected on page 25, would somebody like to move a motion? Councillor Simpfendorfer, so thank you. You've moved the officer recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bennett, thank you very much. Councillor Simpfendorfer.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's good to see the number of tenders that went in onto this process, and I look forward to seeing the great work being completed, hopefully looking at that by June 30, 2021. I think it's very exciting for that area down there to commence such work, so I look forward to seeing that develop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bennett.
So this trail is part of the Two Cities One Community Action Plan. It's about, I think it's about 5 k's. The suggested tender in here has done lots of other work on sort of similar trails around here, so they've got experience in that. And this is going to make sure this is an all abilities trail. So I think it didn't occur to me until I started pushing around a pram just how important footpaths are, that, you know, they do cater for all abilities, so good to see that as a priority. I did have one question without notice. On page 31, it talks about community engagement, and it says community consultation will occur if needed. But so normally when we do projects like this, obviously we would know when community consultation was going to come up. So are we saying that, have we already done the community consultation on this?
Thank you, Councillor. Through me, Leon.
Councillor Bender, through yourself, Mr Mayor, this really formed part, the consultation would have formed part of the Gateway Island Master Plan. You'll recall extensive consultation done over a number of weeks through the Gateway Island project. Ordinarily, we would also consult a lot more if there were people directly impacted by the construction works. In this particular case, none at all really. But we're quite confident that the consultation that was taken through the master planning process was adequate to cover off on that aspect.
Thank you, Director. Any other councillors wanting to speak? Thank you, Councillor Hall.
Yeah, for those who don't have the agenda in front of them, the project is to be funded by state, federal and council money. The cost will be $552,166,000 and $280,000 of that is council money. The winning tender, as Councillor Bennett has said, has completed several footpath projects for council before, and demonstrated their experience with working in challenging and sensitive environmental areas. It'll go through wind through some of our region's most beautiful environmental areas, so providing both a cultural and natural environment experience for those who want to walk or ride along it.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other councillors? Mildred, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this sort of stuff on Gateway Island is where we should be focusing a lot more attention, and I think it's a great idea and great concept. I think it's going to add to the value for both our cities. The one question I do have is, have we had the funding from the state and the federal government components confirmed, and do we have all that information in writing, and how is it funded, through which program?
Thank you, Deb. That'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. They both have been confirmed. One lot of funding is through RDV, and that's for the Burraja redevelopment, as well as 2.5 kilometres of the trail. The other amount is from the regional deal, so it's from the federal government, but we receive it through RDV, and that's for the 2.5, which will make in total a 5 kilometre track. I'd also like to comment, if I may, that we have had lots of consultation with our Aboriginal community. So they are really involved, particularly with the artwork, the commissioning of the artwork, as well as sharing their stories and their knowledge around the cultural aspects down at Gateway Lake. So there has been a lot of consultations. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. No further comment from councillors. Councillor Simpfendorfer, would you like to say anything in closing?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Therefore, I put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Once again, motion is carried unanimously. On to 8.5, the tender for the library gallery audio visual requirements. The report's on page 33. The officer recommendation is on 34. I'd like somebody to move the recommendation if possible. Have I got somebody there? Thank you, Councillor Watson. And seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bennett. All right. Councillor Watson.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got it right that time. Can you see this mask? As I swing my seat to the right, I can see the top of the library building now, with the skylight being installed. So this audio visual equipment will be a great part to the whole complex, and looking forward to the opening next year.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Bennett, nothing to comment. Other councillors? Thank you. I'll have two, but Councillor Mildred, you're first up.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My understanding is that this expenditure is part of the expenditure that was approved globally with the project, and it's not a budget extension or an overrun. This has actually come back to council because it exceeds the delegation quantum that the staff could deal with. That's the only reason it's come back to council. So if that, that's my understanding. If that can be confirmed, thank you.
Thank you, CEO.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor and Councillor Mildred. You are absolutely correct. So this has already been approved, and we're not seeking to extend the approved amount of $250,000. But if we go over $200,000, then that does require a decision of council rather than a decision by myself. So you're absolutely right. It's exceeding, if necessary, the $200,000 delegation, and we want to be very open and transparent with our community and make sure that comes to a council decision. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Look, I think Councillor Mildred stole my thunder on what I was going to say. But yes, so we had budgeted 250,000, like it has been said. It was priced originally at 175,610, but there was some necessary changes to the scope of works, and that will take it over the 200,000 threshold, and that's above the CEO's delegation, as has been said. but it still will be under the 250 that's been budgeted for. So I don't see any issue with this request. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hall. Any other councillors? Any comments in closing, Councillor Watson?
No, Mr Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. I therefore put the motion. All those in favour? All opposed? No. Carried unanimously. Once again, thank you very much, councillors. Item 9 tonight is for the reports for noting, of which there are none. And councillors, we'll move on to item 10. There's 9 reports for information. None of these reports require a council resolution as such, so I'm going to move through them with your permission fairly quickly, but please pull me up if you wish to speak to any of the reports. 10.1 was the finance report for October 2020 on page 38. 10.2 was the planning report for October 2020 on page 50. 10.3, the building report for October 2020 on page 53. 10.4, the competitive services report for October 2020 on page 57. Councillor Bennett.
Just a quick question, because I know the community have raised this with me and probably other people. I noticed in the contracts of water we're doing a lot of work down at what was the Sustainable Activity Centre. So what's the plan for that space?
CEO, who are we best going to answer that question with?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. We received some funding from the federal government to refurbish the old Sustainability Activity Centre. At the moment, we're doing that refurbishment, and then we will look to move Burrager into that building while we redevelop Burrager. And then after that date, when they move back to Burrager, we'll look at leasing that property out.
Thanks, Deb. I've tried to jump ahead of myself here. 10.5, the council plan progress report was on page 60. 10.6, the guidelines for virtual council meetings on page 68. Councillor Mildren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have a couple of housekeeping questions, I guess. First question is, these guidelines are largely generated by the government's new guidelines as a response to COVID-19. How much of the work that's been put into this is our additional information over and above that which the government has put out? That's the first question. And second question, how binding is this in terms, is it a discretionary document, or is it seen as a document that binds the council? Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mildren. CEO.
So in terms of the guidelines, we've certainly been driven through Local Government Victoria, through the MAV, Municipal Association of Victoria. So the guidelines have come out to all councils, and it is obviously in response to COVID, and therefore we've accepted those guidelines and will abide by them for as long as the COVID restrictions remain in place. In terms of legally binding, I think it's more a case of if we breach those guidelines, we will be, in essence, breaching the Local Government Victoria and hence the Government of Victoria's guidelines around how we do virtual meetings in a COVID or post-COVID environment.
Thank you, CEO, and that answered the question. Councillor Mildren, yes?
Sort of, but when I was reading it and reading through the document, it seemed to me that some of the things that were in there might have been added in to suit our situation, and I just need to have a bit of clarity about that. If that's not the case, then just say so. And I'll perfectly accept what's said, no doubt. But when I was reading it, I just thought, there's things that we've thrown into this that are more locally specific. If that's not the case, so be it.
Thank you, Councillor Mildren. 10.7, the record of councillor meetings was on page 74. 10.8, the decisions register on 76. The 10.9 was the oath and affirmation of office on page 82. So that sees out item 10 to its entirety. Item 11 is notices of motion, of which there are none. Item 12 is petitions, of which there are none. Item 13 is the council common seal, of which there are none. Item 14, general business. Councillors, is there any general business within the room? Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm not quite sure of the date, but I'd just like to let all of our residents know that we've got our Christmas tree up and we'll be having lighting of the lights, and if Officer Mudra might know that date, but it is coming up soon.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The lighting of the Christmas tree, we won't be doing that this year. It will just automatically go on due to COVID-19 as well as daylight savings, Councillor Watson. Happy with that?
Thanks, Officer Mudra. I'm looking forward to the lights coming on. And my second point for all those who are zooming in and watching us, tonight's our first night that we're actually gone paperless, and we're using iPads. And so if everyone thinks at home where they're just looking at their iPad, we're actually reading our agenda from it. We're going to be saving some $28,000 in printing costs. The efficiency is going to be a lot better, Mr Mayor, and I think we're slowly getting the hang of it. So I think it's a good concept to take into the new council term.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I was just going to keep an eye on what series you were binge watching during the council meetings and see if you had any tips. Any other councillors with general business? I'm seeing a couple of shakes. I'd just like to add and congratulate, and I know I shared this earlier this morning with my fellow councillors, just Donna Wright, the principal of the Bandiana Primary School, deserves recognition. It came to my attention late last night that Donna has taken out the Australian Government Primary School Principal of the Year, but has also won the Australian Principal of the Year 2020. That's across all Australian schools, both government and independent sectors. Some of those are some pretty prestigious schools, so that's one that our community can wear with pride from that representation. So well done to Donna. Item 15, given there's no further general business, there is no urgent business. Item 16, question time. Do we have any questions, CEO? No questions. And there is also no confidential business or confidential urgent business, which leaves me to declare the meeting closed at 6:27 p.m. Thank you, councillors.